Samuel, Israel's beloved prophet and leader, died, leaving behind a legacy of faith and wisdom that had guided the nation for years. His passing left the entire nation in deep mourning, as people gathered to honor his memory and grieve the loss of their spiritual guide. David, heartbroken over the loss of his mentor, couldn't linger in his grief. King Saul was still hunting him with relentless jealousy and growing rage. Forced to flee for his life, David and his loyal men hid in the harsh wilderness of Paran, struggling each day to survive in the unforgiving landscape. Despite their hardships and constant danger, David's men protected local shepherds and flocks, acting as unseen guardians and earning quiet respect. In this lonely and uncertain place, David waited on God's promise, clinging to hope even as it seemed distant and almost out of reach. But the story is about to shift. A foolish rich man, a wise and courageous woman, and a near-disastrous mistake are about to collide in a moment that will test everyone's character. One act of unexpected kindness will soon turn a path of revenge into a story of peace and reconciliation. Even in the wilderness, God's care for David was about to shine through, revealed in moments of unexpected courage and compassion. This is where our story truly begins, a journey of loss, hope, and the surprising ways that faith can change everything. In the rugged wilderness of ancient times lived Nabal, a man of great wealth but little sense. He owned vast flocks and herds, and his riches were well known throughout the land. Yet, despite his fortune, Nabal was known for his harshness and lack of kindness. By his side was his wife, Abigail, a woman celebrated for her intelligence, grace, and wisdom. She was respected by all who knew her, a true contrast to her husband. During the lively sheep-shearing festival, David, who was living in the wilderness with his men, sent messengers to Nabal. He politely asked for food and provisions, reminding Nabal that his men had protected Nabal's shepherds and flocks from harm all season. But Nabal responded with rudeness and scorn, insulting David and refusing to share even a crumb. He sent David's men away empty-handed, showing no gratitude for their protection. Furious at this insult, David gathered his warriors and prepared to march against Nabal's household, determined to take revenge for the offense. But Abigail, upon hearing of the looming danger, wasted no time. She quickly understood the gravity of the situation and knew she had to act to save her family and servants. With determination, Abigail loaded donkeys with generous gifts, bread, wine, meat, and fruit, and set out to intercept David before disaster could strike her home. Meeting David on the road, Abigail humbly knelt before him. She pleaded for mercy, urging David not to stain his future with needless bloodshed or regretful vengeance. Abigail's wisdom and courage touched David's heart. Her words calmed his anger, and he thanked her deeply for stopping him from making a terrible mistake he would later regret. Thanks to Abigail's bravery and quick thinking, her household was saved from destruction, and David turned away from vengeance, choosing mercy instead. When Nabal learned of these events, the shock overwhelmed him. Not long after, he fell ill and died, his foolishness costing him dearly. Moved by Abigail's wisdom and character, David later asked her to become his wife, honoring her as a woman of true courage and insight. As David hid from Saul in the wilderness of Ziph, he lived each day with uncertainty, never knowing if he would survive to see the next sunrise. The barren landscape became both his refuge and his prison, a place where he was constantly on the move, relying on his faith and wits to stay alive. Saul pursued him with 3,000 soldiers, determined to capture David at any cost. The king's relentless hunt forced David and his followers to remain vigilant, always watching for danger. One night, under the cover of darkness, David and Abishai crept silently into Saul's camp, risking everything. They found the king asleep, his spear stuck in the ground beside him, surrounded by his unaware soldiers. Abishai urged David to kill Saul, insisting this was their chance for freedom. But David refused, believing it was not his place to harm the Lord's anointed, and trusting God to deal with Saul in his own time. Instead, David quietly took Saul's spear and water jug as undeniable proof he'd spared the king's life, showing mercy when he could have chosen vengeance. From a safe distance, David called out to Saul's camp at dawn, showing the spear and water jug, and confronting Saul for his relentless pursuit and mistrust. Saul, deeply ashamed, admitted his wrongdoing before all his men and promised to stop hunting David, recognizing the mercy he'd been shown. David returned the spear, choosing mercy over revenge once again, and demonstrating a heart guided by compassion and humility. He trusted God's timing, refusing to seize the throne by force, and waiting patiently for the promise to be fulfilled in the right way. David's restraint and unwavering faith in the face of temptation showed true leadership, inspiring those around him and setting an example for generations to come. Despite Saul's promise, David knew he wasn't safe in Israel. He made the bold choice to seek refuge with the Philistines, Israel's enemies. King Achish of Gath welcomed David, who brought his men and families to live there. Saul, hearing David had fled, finally stopped his pursuit. David asked Achish for a town of his own and was given Ziklag, where he settled with his followers. While living among the Philistines, David cleverly protected Israel by secretly attacking their enemies. Achish trusted David, unaware of his true loyalty. David walked a dangerous line, surviving as a stranger while waiting for God's promise. This season tested David's wisdom and faithfulness. Even in exile, God was shaping David into a king. David's story is filled with lessons for us. Abigail's wisdom shows how kindness can stop anger and bring peace. David's mercy toward Saul teaches us to forgive, leaving justice to God. His time among the Philistines reminds us to trust God, even in hard places. Through every trial, God was faithful, guiding, protecting, and preparing David. These stories remind us that God's love never fails. We can be courageous, forgiving, and trust God's plan just as David did. God's never-ending love is with us, always.